For more, we are joined by Julia Lau, a senior fellow and coordinator of Indonesia Studies at ISEAS Yusof Ishak Institute. Julia, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. Firstly, just how effective do you think these revisions will be in addressing the issues facing Indonesia's military? And are they necessary at this time?
That's a good question to start with and a very rational one. So if you look on the face of it, they only amended three key provisions. So one, which is probably the one that most people are upset about, increases the number of ministries or institutions that active TNI officers and personnel can join. So that basically means they're expanding, if you will, the reach. So this is probably the clause that upsets most of the protesters because they fear that this will bring back what they call duifungsi, which is dual function, meaning military officers who are still holding active commissions are serving in civilian positions. And so for a democracy that prides itself on not being a military-led regime, that's a no-no, right? But we can unpack that later. The second one, the extension of the retirement age for non-commissioned officers as well as officers, that in and of itself, I think is not problematic. It's rational in the sense that Indonesians are living longer as, the middle class expands and lifestyles get better. However, the fear again is there are then more military personnel who are hanging on to their jobs. They're also then taking state resources because you have to pay them and then you have to pay them pensions, et cetera, et cetera. Then the last key change is also another point that potentially upsets protesters, which is to add authority for two particular types of military operations other than war. So the Indonesian acronym is OMSP, or Operasi Militer Selain Perang, otherwise known in English as military operations other than war, or MOOTW. So the two updates are to handle cyber threats and also to secure Indonesian citizens' interests overseas. So to me, any country would want that, right? Any country would want their military to be able to protect their citizens. So that in and of itself is a rational update. Extending retirement age, most countries do it as well. It's a sort of timely thing. The only overall thing to note will be context-wise, it's not a good look for a president who is a former general himself, who was accused of certain human rights and other abuses while he was an active military general and officer. And it is also sort of reminiscent of, Suharto's 32-year reign, and Suharto happens to be this particular president's former father-in-law. So there's a lot of history or baggage, if you will.
Julia, activists fear that the new law can be easily used to crush political dissent. But how is the government defending the move? I mean, what does it want to achieve with the entrenchment of the military in civilian affairs? I mean, does it view current processes as ineffective, too bureaucratic? Is it safeguarding Indonesia's geopolitical interests? And how far do you think, blurring the lines between military and civilian sectors will really help the government achieve what it wants to achieve?
Mm. So those are great questions. And again, objectively speaking, almost all military officers are people who have gone through expensive training, right? Both domestically and sometimes overseas for the high performing ones. At least three of Indonesia's past presidents were generals, right? So in that sense, Prabowo and his administration are in a hurry to show that there is progress. To him, the president personally, I think he firmly believes that the military is a source of good human resources, right? Well-trained men and women who obey instructions, who will be deployed as fast as they can be. So, for instance, he has roped them in to help distribute the free nutritious meals that he's so fond of. It's one of his signature policy programs. Apparently, there are also 200 officers who have been sent to a 2-week-long management course, and they will be soon deployed to state-owned enterprises. That one may be a bit fishy, but I don't think it's an unfair thing to believe that, a well-trained and sort of person with a heart in the right place, military officer or NCO, can help to quickly implement certain policies. But I think the protesters are almost, if you will, overreacting or reacting based on baggage again. It's not just a reaction to what happened yesterday in Parliament. This has been brewing a long time since Widodo's administration.
Okay, speaking of reactions from civil society and also the students, I mean, they've certainly been quite vocal.
Mm.
Do you think these demonstrations will escalate, or will they just remain as sort of a passing phase?
So I was watching the clip just now, and that only had footage from the morning, and the deliberations were at about, I think, 10:30 a.m. Indonesia time, or 9:30. But if you watch any videos on X or other platforms last night, there was violence. There were students who were hurt with wounds, with blood dripping down their faces. Late last night, water cannon was deployed. Military and police personnel were deployed. Over 5,000 apparently, compared to, I don't know how many in terms of numbers of protesters. Probably by nighttime there were more than 1,000. It's also hard to tell because it's dark, but I think there are plans to continue the demonstrations through the weekend. It happens to be Friday. It happens to be also the fasting month, holy month of Ramadan. So, people are probably hangry. It's a bit of a flippant thing to say, but to do this during Ramadan, and the perception was that this bill was rushed, that they didn't engage in proper public consultation. So I don't expect the demonstrations to stop
Julia,
this
I
weekend at
just
least.
to go back to the point about Prabowo's image. I mean, I want to know, the moves to kind of rush this
Mm,
revision through. I mean, how does this square with his image, Prabowo, who won the Indonesian
mm,
presidential election last year? After this campaign based on his gemoy, his cute image, that he kind of tried to distance
mm,
himself from his military past.
mhm. Yeah, so I think the people who watch Indonesia for a long time, and I was a very young analyst in 1998, and that's actually the year I started watching Indonesia. Well, we always knew the Gamoy was a PR campaign. So, if you will, the Gamoy gloves are off, and slowly the real face is showing. However, I think it's also the younger voters, many of whom voted for him in overwhelming numbers, are learning their history lessons now, are seeing the potential. I'm not saying it's there yet, and I think it's still far from there, but they are seeing the potential authority and iron of a regime that may turn that way. It has not turned that way. I think the signals from the markets, so the stock market plunged by more than 7% earlier this week. These things will still hopefully keep the regime in check, right? They know that there are certain differences 20 years on. 26 years on, there's now social media. You have students taking videos. They're very diligent about archiving video and other material of police or military violence against student protesters. They are also very diligent about shouting out very loudly what the authorities are doing if they feel that that's not a good thing. So I'm waiting to see what happens, whether the president will come and make any statements. So we'll see.
Yeah, so we're also waiting to see what happens because my next question to you is
Mm.
what's next? Because this was seen as, a rush to amend the law. Is there any way for it to be challenged in court, or is this a done deal?
Sudah, it is done. There was unanimous, so eight government factions passed it. Puan Maharani famously is from PDIP, the Indonesian Democratic Party of Struggle, and that would be if there were the opposition faction. So even the Speaker of Parliament, who in a way represents, even though she's not the chair, she's the daughter of the chair of PDIP. It's kosher. It was passed. It will take a lot to undo. But then again, back to my original first response, which is on the face of it, it is not a bad update. However, justice must not just be done, but be seen to be done. And in this case, the passage of the law was unfortunately maybe lacking in public consultation, also appears to be rushed, and also to do it during the fasting month, and then to have violent responses by some personnel against, mostly calm and non-violent protesters. Now that's a problem. So we'll see where that goes next week, because after next week is the end of Ramadan. Then really maybe the gloves will come off.
All right, Julia, I really appreciate your time. Julia Lau, we're Senior Fellow and Coordinator of Indonesia Studies at ISEAS Yusof Ishak Institute.